I've been looking for the ideal setup for when I travel. When I first started traveling, I would bring with me maybe 6 or 7 lenses and a couple of cameras and a couple of flash and a big camera bag and a laptop and all that stuff. I would just bring a bunch of gear, and it was just hard getting through the airport, even getting through security and things like that. They would stop me because I had so much gear, and they'd look through it, and it also was the fact that I'm not getting any younger. It was getting harder and harder to carry around the airport, and getting from hotel to bus to taxi cab and all those things. So I begun to start thinking, well, what is my minimal thing that I can bring with me and still get the kind of images that I'm looking for when I travel? And so I started cutting down, taking less lenses, taking less cameras, and I got to the point where last year I decided what I would do. I would go to all prime lenses with my Sony a7 III, and what I did was I brought a Samyang 24-28 and a Rokinon 24-28 and this Sony 85-18, and that's all I brought with me. And I brought my a7 III, and did I bring anything else? I think I brought my little Sony RX100 Mark III, and that's all I brought. And so this year, my plan, I started looking at it and said, you know, I realized when I was out there in the cities and taking pictures, and I would have my 35 with me and my 24, my 85 in a little bag, and I realized, I thought that I would switch back between lenses when I needed different focal lengths, but I found that to be too much of a hassle, and I was worried about exposing my sensor out in the air, and so I tended to just stay with the 35 or the 24 if I had it on there. And so I wasn't really taking as many pictures as I would have taken because I didn't have that many focal lengths to work with. So I decided I wanted to think about getting one of these, which is the Sony 24-105. And this is how it looks on an a7 III. And it is, I had one of these when I was a Canon shooter, and it was an L lens, and this is a higher grade lens, and it was weather sealed. This one is weather sealed, and I found that once I got that lens, that actually was my workhorse lens, and I think this is going to be my workhorse lens from here on in. I like the idea of primes, but I find that when I walk around a city with a lens like this on it, I get more images because I have more options, and I'm not having to change my lenses all through the day. And this lens has some nice features on it. Let's bring it up closer. Basically, it has, let me get that right. But you know, it has your it has a programmable button here, and what this does is you can program it for any number of things. It comes programmed for autofocus hold, but what I do is I program it for eye autofocus, and I really like it that way. That works really well for me, but you can program it for some other things as well. It has autofocus, manual focus switch, which is really kind of nice. You don't have to go into the menu to change that. It has, you can turn off the optical steady shot, image steady shot, off and on, like if you're going to put it on a tripod. This lens, like I said, it is weather and dust proof, or let's say resistant. You don't want to really dunk it in the water or pull it out in a downpour, but otherwise it's pretty sturdy. It's pretty sturdily built. It's let me see what the weight is on this thing. I think it's like 23 ounces and 660 something grams. So it's not light. It adds a little weight to the camera, but that's okay because it's the only thing you're carrying around. Yeah, I use a Peak Design strap with it, and it carries very well that way. It doesn't feel too heavy. This lens is a constant f4 aperture, which is very nice. So when you're zooming in and out, it doesn't change aperture, which we really like that, especially if you're doing video or something like that. The autofocus works really nicely, and it takes very nice images. It's one of my favorite YouTube reviewers, Christopher Frost. He said this is the best 24 to 105 for Sony that he's tested. So I'm really liking it. I'm getting good images with it. I've done some portrait work with it. I've done some landscape photography with it. I've done some street photography with it, and all of those I've been very happy with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some images that I've taken with it and let you see what I'm getting out of it. And these images are all going to be edited because I don't do that. This is straight out of the camera because I feel that I always edit my images. I always shoot in RAW, so I'm always going to edit my images. So what I get at the end of the edit is how I rate the lens, and I think I get some pretty nice images there. I don't find myself needing to sharpen my images in post, so that's a big deal because, and that's partly the camera, because this camera doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter in it, so it doesn't dull your images, but it's also the lens. So I'm really enjoying it, and I know this is a quick review. I don't want to get too deep down into it. A lot of people have done reviews on this. I just wanted to give my 2 cents and say that I highly recommend this lens. Thanks for watching.